welcome Mr. Ajay Bora, the co-founder of HDFC Credila Financial Services, India's largest private student lender. With over rupees 10,000 crore disbursed in student loan, he has been a driving force in education financing. With an MBA from Hofstra University, New York, and experience at MetLife's New York office, he co-founded a healthcare-focused BPO in India. In 2006, he, along with his brother, founded Credila. Let's give a warm welcome to this visionary leader in educational financing. Thank you. I would request Mr. Ajay Bora to come onto the stage and facilitate the questions.
Looking like you, wearing the suit, so my apologies for that. Let me start by, congratulating all of you for certain reasons. I have been observing this institute since it got started with a visionary leader like Dr. Sonamne. And what we have seen today, I got to see the presentation of the institute. And since the inception to where it has reached today, before that, one caveat that I get to meet a lot of industry institute leaders or academic administrators across India due to the role at Credila, and I get to see their progress from close quarters. Having said that, what SIOM has done in terms of its industry interactions, unlearning and relearning at the director level, where she can get to the courses and the programs which are future ready, which make you future ready. I think that's highly commendable. So big round of applause for yourself and the faculty. First of all, thank you for inviting. So let's start that why should you listen to this session today? If I can just ask you one question, that if you go to any institute and you see the graduating class and you look at the kind of jobs they get or the kind of salary structures they get, it is never the same. They differ. Now that phenomenon is not just one institute specific but all across. And if you see their progress over the next 20 years, 30 years, where do they reach? Also we see a lot of diversity and the levels at which they reach would differ. Now, had the institute been the only factor which mattered, then they would have all done the same. But there is something beyond the institute, and which in my opinion is you. And why it is you who is in charge of the process of learning for the rest of the life is because if we look at the world around us, it's highly disruptive. Meaning the half-life period of most of the products and services is shrinking very rapidly. The products, the concepts, the ideas which were relevant today or maybe relevant 2 years, 5 years down the line, they are not relevant today and they may not remain relevant over the next 2-3 years. So when the world is changing so rapidly, there is only one thing that students can be ready for or can really need to imbibe, and that in my opinion is to be ready how to deal with disruptions, to be ready to unlearn and relearn as the industry changes, as the environment changes, as new tools come in. And if we see now, earlier their knowledge used to be the foundation on your growth or on our progress in life. But now in today's world, what has become more relevant is your ability to be the students for life. That is one. Second, in my opinion, and that's where today's session we will try to talk about. There are two kinds of companies, those that work to try to charge more and those that work to charge less. We will be the second. It's a very mundane, monotonous, simple statement, but it has an underlying philosophy in my opinion, which says that which charges less. Now, what is so different about that? Every business wants to charge less. But in my opinion, if we see the second one, then we will understand what we are saying. More process, less innovation. More operations, less innovation. More management, less innovation. More entrepreneurs, more innovation. So, the first statement, what Jeff Bezos has said is, he wants to sell it at a low cost. That means do more with less. And for more, that means be cost competitive, be more productive. Now, doing more with less resources is the fundamental attribute of an entrepreneurial skill. Entrepreneurs do more with less, comma, for more. More with less, meaning less resources with lot of constraints, and for more, that means for a bigger impact. If you were to do, let's say, a digital marketing campaign, can you do it maybe with zero budget or a very small budget, and can you have the impact on larger audience? That's the underlying theme. And making or understanding that skill is nothing else but the entrepreneurial skill. And therefore, whether any student wants to be an entrepreneur in life or not, irrespective of that, imbibing entrepreneurial skills is the key foundation to be future ready, in my opinion. And the next one, this itself, as we discussed, is the entrepreneurial mindset, doing more with less. And that's where the Credila story starts, the next one. Yeah, so because today's session is about e-summit and also entrepreneurial skills, I got the privilege to be an entrepreneur for the past maybe 30 years or so, and I have a lot of learnings. I used to have full head of hair like all of you, but I lost it in the course and I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes and learned. So what we will do is I'll share my experiences with the intention that you do not have to pay the same price to learn those. Second, I think while doing that, it might be critical that what are the critical success factors to be the successful or very progressive operations management professional. For that, there would be a lot of learnings, and as we go through the story, I'll try to share those or highlight those so that they could be extrapolated in your respective environments, wherever you go to work or wherever you do your projects. So should we start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let me start by the first thing is, how did it start? So that I'll give you the preamble to that initially, whenever suppose you get to do a project, you want to, let's say, do a group project or an internship or your capstone project, what is it that you look for initially? Anyone? Let's say if you are given various choices, or you go in an organization and you pitch to them, what do you want to do? What is it that you would look for? How would you identify, or how would you spot an opportunity?
So first we will look at the annual report or the financial report that they have.
That you would do as your homework, right? But if you go there, then what would you ask them? As a project.
What are the challenges there?
Yeah. Okay. And then suppose you want to do related to operations management. Then what could be your next questions?
Sir, how their operation goes on, or how the things take place in their organization.
Yeah.
We would like to understand how the organization works.
Yeah. But those are basics. But see, and that is applicable even if you want to be an entrepreneur. Unsolved problems. Whenever you join as any organization as the professional after your graduation, and the boss asks you what should be your KRA, the first thing is, what are the most difficult problems which are unsolved? That is one. So that's what we tried to do when we thought about Credila. I'm an engineer from VJTI, as the introduction said. Then I did MBA from New York, and I worked there in New York as a financial planner for 6 years. And that's when my father is a lawyer, so we did not have the business background. Being the first generation entrepreneur, and how many of you want to be the entrepreneur, pure play entrepreneurs? Because I was told that some of you, given your background, work experience, are using it to change tracks. And even if nobody wants to be an entrepreneur, that's okay, but is there anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur that you have decided at some point of time in your life? Okay. So hopefully then it would help you. So The first thing is that when it is your depth of conviction which matters. So, because we did not have a business background, we did not know how to start the venture. So I took a list from Dun and Bradstreet of the people who were doing data processing and started cold calling, thinking that cold calling gets you a joint venture partner. But in reality, it doesn't happen. But it happened with us, and we got a gentleman called John Dion from Des Moines, Iowa, from the US, and they own 51%, and my brother and I own 49%, and we started a business process outsourcing unit in Nasik, and that happened in 1997, and we were focusing on healthcare claims processing, and then we had about 1,500 employees, 1,500. That's when we sold the company to WNS, which, as you see in Nasik, they currently have about 3,700 students. So, right from cold calling to getting the joint venture partner to really making it grow, that's when we exited. We sold to WNS, I got to serve on its board of directors, and that's when, after that company got listed on New York Stock Exchange. So that was the first journey. Second, for Credila, where it happened was, once we were looking for what to do next, that's when the idea came in, and that's why I asked you that what would you look for. So we started looking for the pain points. What is it that India doesn't have, which we can disrupt? And what do we mean by disruption? Disruption means that you change the rules of the games. You identify an opportunity and offer a solution which nobody else is doing. So while sitting in one conference in Florida, Boca Raton, on structured finance, there was an entity who was doing about $600 billion of student loans. This goes back in 2005, called Sallie, S-A-L-L-I-E, Sallie, M-A-E. That company was doing $600 billion of student loans. And that day I could not sleep. I thought that in India, there are so many students who are not getting education loans. Even I, to do my MBA in New York, I could not get education loans. My father had to go to about 20 banks. Finally, we got from Canara Bank of India. They were nice, and it was only for 1 lakh rupees. The rest we had to fund through borrowings, family savings, and the struggle. So, in the back of my mind, it was there. And that's when the thought came in that if in the US, if it is such a large, why we don't have a specialized player in India? That was one data point. Second, what we realized was that overall student loans in India at that time were only about 70,000 crores. Now, if we look at the population of India, which is 4 times that of the US, our total student loans outstanding should be about $1.7 trillion, but they were not there. So that's when we thought of an idea to start Credila. Now, Credila as a dedicated student loan company became India's first dedicated student loan company, which did nothing else but student loans. And by the time we exited in 2019, it had grown to about 10,000 crores of student loans, and we became the largest private student loan lenders of India. So that has been the journey. All along it started from Nasik. Now, once we get into the nitty-gritty, from the operations standpoint, suppose you get an idea, or let's say you go in an organization and you take up a project. How do you execute? Operations management is all about execution, right? Your course teaches you various things. So while we walk through the journey, let's see it from the prism of operations management. So the first thing, once you get an idea, let's say you get a project, you go there and you get a Six Sigma project. Or let's say you join a financial services industry and you have to do transaction for treasury management. Or you go into an automobile industry and you have to streamline the process of procurement. Or an e-commerce company where you have to probably manage their supply chain. What would you do, right? So once you get an idea, like we got Credila as an idea, the second step, important critical step is you have to have the mission to communicate to your stakeholders that why do you want to do this project, correct? That's what would be asked. So in our case, we needed a team to be built in for Credila, that how do we get people, how can we create the ecosystem around it. So that's when we created a mission which is transforming lives and building the nation. Now transforming lives means, why does it transform lives? Because if you get education loans to study abroad, your life gets transformed. You get exposed to better opportunities, maybe more exposure, and then building the nation. Then you come back to India, you then probably, or you study here, you get education loan, you study in India, then you are more productive. You can contribute to the GDP of India. So we created a mission. So if you want to do a project, wherever you go, you will have to create the mission around it so that you can rally all your stakeholders around it. Now why it is critical, let's say you take up a project of developing a supply chain or making it more productive for an e-commerce company, then others may not share data with you. They may create hindrances for you. So the only way you can overcome those obstacles or those hurdles would be if you have the mission to drive it, number one. Number two, typically given the size of the projects, you would have a team. Now they need the purpose in life, they need to get up every morning and do some work. So with that mission, transforming lives and building the nation, we were a startup and we had no background in education loans. It was just an idea and probably we were stupid/naive to start that idea. That's when we needed senior people to join in. And we had our first country head, Prashant Bhosle, who joined in. He was with ICICI Bank doing 12,000 crores of annual disbursements in ICICI Bank. Now and about 1,000 people reporting to him. Now he joined in as a country head because we were mission driven. We had a purpose for our organization. And that's when the story started, and then others came in. So for you also it would be critical to have a champion. Let's say you join any organization, you would need the blessings of some senior management. Let's say a vice president or a senior VP or the head of procurement. Those people would need to bless you. So wherever you get stuck, you need some information, you should be able to help them out, right? So that's what we did. Once we built the team, and then we went to the banks, then the banks asked us various questions. That's when we faced a lot of hurdles. But to cover it all up, if we were to see what were the learnings, that suppose you want to go to any other organization and use those learnings, how would you lose those? How would you use those learnings? So we have about 6 rules that I have defined, or 6 components of a formula. It's a formula I have created that if you want to recreate a venture, a business empire, or you want to, let's say, recreate a success story, there are 6 critical decision points that we have to focus on and implement in order for us to really achieve our goals. And if we do that, we will be leading the disruption. We would be disrupting certain traditional ways of doing things. Let's get into that. We disbursed $1 billion equivalent of student loans from Nasik. All the loans were getting disbursed from Nasik only. So we had given these trophies to everybody, and we used to have annual events. So if you do any project, I think it's important that you create own mission, name it, give some name, and then try to involve everybody so they get the sense of belonging, number one. Also they understand how important your mission is. Now if we see, just to set the context, if we see all around us, what is happening? Every business is a tech business now. So even if you take, let's say, agribusiness, it is drones are being used, or various other robots are being used. So no matter which industry you are in, right from mining, as mundane as mining to most advanced, every business is a tech business now. Also, very soon machines would be able to do whatever the humans are doing, or even beyond. Like the algorithms are on now where it will go beyond human intelligence. So that's the second given. Third is generative AI and other technologies have disrupted the future of work. Earlier writing skills were important. Now not anymore, because ChatGPT can write better than us, better than any human being. So that generative AI is changing the future of work, the kind of work we will do, has been disrupted already. By the time when you join the institute, you could be the first batch where you would be co-learning with your general purpose companion called ChatGPT. It's a tool which will enable your efficiency. It is a tool which will enhance your productivity. And it is not a threat, but a co-pilot. It can help you be the general purpose companion for the work and the tasks you do. So that's a new tool you have, which you'll need to learn and adapt and probably figure out how that can be the enabler for your tasks. So when things are changing so rapidly, there are a lot of things which never change or which are valid even now. What are those? Higher productivity would continue to be expected, right? Productivity is the watchword. The moment you enter the corporate world, and most of you have the experience, so they ask for productivity. That would continue. Hyper personalization, that is a critical trend. And in the operations management, if you figure out how to hyper personalize your processes, for example, let's say if you join an e-commerce company, then the package which goes in, if you develop a process or if you develop the operational system to customize it to the particular need of that person, packaging could be customized to that person's priorities or preferences or lifestyles. Even the size or the packaging could change as per their requirement. Now that's the ultimate level. Is it feasible? Absolutely. And if you come out with these disruptive ideas wherever you join, you would lead a larger team and you would rise up the ladder in your corporate career. So that's second thing which is going to be as is no matter how the world changes. The third one, the technologies would continue to evolve. ChatGPT is there today, maybe some other tools would come up. Unless you imbibe and make the culture of unlearning and relearning and really be the master of that, the probability of you getting obsolete would remain very high, because the machines can do it, otherwise would do it better than you. So unlearning and relearning would continue to be a part of our DNA. Next is, as we have discussed, people, no matter where they go, as the productivity increases, their aspirations would increase. They would want you to do more for less. So entrepreneurial skills would be critical. So if we see that we are at the crossroads or at an inflection point of the mega change that is happening due to generative AI, which is omnipresent now, how can we be future ready? In my opinion, there is only one way, which is figure out how your mind could be entrepreneurial. Now, what defines an entrepreneur, as we have seen, doing more with less, but another very important attribute of an entrepreneurial mindset, which is grit, not giving up. Irrespective of how many hurdles which come your way, how can we continue to overcome those and continue to deliver? Now, when we say disruption, do we really mean innovation? In my opinion, no, it's very different. That innovation is doing the same thing a bit better, but disruption is challenging it and making the old things obsolete and doing it differently. So if you want to be the next gen operations management professional, then your mindset can always be, how can I disrupt the existing way of doing things? And ChatGPT could be your enabler or accelerator in that direction, because it can give you massive resources and computing abilities, also the tools to be able to do whatever you want to do or you aspire to do. And that's where you can be the thought leader within the given organization you go in. Now if we see that everybody is saying do more with less, around us, is there any simple example or a case study where we can see where people are doing more with less resources? You'll be surprised, but there is one example that we see every day. If we see the ants, what's so special about the ants? Even for their house, even the dew is like a flood for them. And if we see their brains, their brain has only 250,000 cells, whereas the human brain has 10,000 million brain cells. But despite their restrictive capacity or resources, the crunch that they have, if you look at what they carry, they live 20 times their body weight. Now how can they do that? If they can do it with such, only 250,000 brain cells, while as we have 10,000 million, we can always do that, right? But how do they do is very critical. If you see that they figure out their own tactics. So strategy is important, but to be able to deliver, what do? They prepare their food in summer. Also, they know that no food will be there in the winter time. So think about the future. Plan your resources ahead of time. Also, they do not eat on the spot, whatever is found. They carry it for a rainy day. And their homes, if we see, that they are always prepared for a disaster. So disaster recovery. Another thing important for an operations management professional to know. Their house structure is like that. And they use antennas not just as touch but also their smell. If they find something, if you see that one ant finds something, the others follow. So then you create a track record for others to follow and create a process or a system around it. Now that's what the marvel of nature is. And if an ant with restricted resources can do, we can definitely do it as human beings. So this is what we discuss. Entrepreneurship is doing more with less. Now, if let's say you decide that you want to demonstrate your entrepreneurial skills, what does an entrepreneur do? The entrepreneur always searches for a change, responds to it and exploits it as an opportunity. So every change, like ChatGPT is a mega trend or a mega change or a tsunami which has come in. So that could be your opportunity to establish yourself as the thought leader in the respective organizations. Now how can you do that? Again, this is the most critical part to see, that the disruptor, if you want to be the disruptor, you see things which others cannot see and you react faster than others can and drive better than you ever will. So if your mindset is different than the others, they see, maybe 10 people see the same thing but you see it differently. But you have the way you react, the way you are able to connect the dots and create something out of it, would change. And that is a mindset. If you continue to do it on a daily basis, then I think it can work very well. Now as we discussed that if we have to replicate that success, let's say Credila success or our BPO, a business process outsourcing, is there a formula? In my opinion, yes. We thought a lot about it and we created 6 critical decision points to create any disruptive environment and scaling up the disruption. Let's say you join an organization and you got an idea that let's use ChatGPT for analytics and let's reduce the delivery time by 10%, or let's reduce the inventory cost, let's say, by 18%. That's a disruptive thought you may have. Or let's say you want to redefine the process and maybe eliminate 3 steps, critical steps of the process and redefine the entire thing. If you come out with the disruptive idea, then you will be evaluated on are you able to scale up the disruptive idea. And that's where the formula can help. There will be 6 critical decision points, and what are those? And I'll give my own learnings and examples for that. The first one, are we digging a dry well or are we digging a well with water? Now, what do we mean by that? Let's say if you identify a project, then you really have to find out that is there a high potential to really put in the efforts. So as far as Credila was concerned, we realized, as we discussed, in the US, student loan segment, education loan segment was $1.7 trillion worth. While as in India, all lenders put together was only $10 billion equivalent, about 70 to 80,000 crores. So it was a well with the water, with a lot of potential. That's what we have identified and we focused on that. And many people, when they choose the projects or whenever they join the organization, the time allocation or resource allocation has to be well thought through, because the time spent in selecting the right thing to do could be very critical. And while we were doing that, initially there was no lender. So the next step is, once we identify the opportunity, you have to disrupt, you have to redefine the rules. In our case, Credila was India's first dedicated education loan, but it was the first one as a non-bank finance company. And that's when the challenges come in. If you try to disrupt and reorient something or reinvent something, then a lot of challenges come in. You have to do your homework and demonstrate your domain expertise. So the first thing is develop domain expertise. And how do you do that? Like in our case, we redefine the rules. For example, the banks wanted students to go to the branches and apply for education loans. So we changed that and we coined a term, education loans home delivered. This was a pre-COVID era when we had customized education loans home delivered. Then also the students, our focus primarily was Indian students going to the US for higher education. And that's where what we had done was that students needed, in order for them to get I-20, they needed to demonstrate liquid funds to show their ability to finance their education. So we came out with a pre-approved education loans. That means whenever they went to the bank earlier before Credila, banks used to ask for the admission letter, and without the admission letter they never gave the loans. So Credila redefined that or disrupted that, and we said that we do not need your admission letter, we will give you a pre-approved loan. Also the third thing was that most of the banks wanted some security or some guarantee or the collateral. Credila disbursed 80% of its loan now, and when I was there, until then 60% of the loans, education loans, which were unsecured. So various rules of the games got changed and we redefined the equation. So that's when, if you start to disrupt certain processes, you will need to be ready to deal with the challenges which come in. That's the first part. Second, so let's say if you have 3 projects to do as a operations management professional, what would define, and I have conviction in this and very few people understand how profound this is than doing multiple things at a time. The moment you try to do 2-3 things at the same time as a project, let's say whether it's process improvement or efficiency or maybe Six Sigma related projects, laser focus is extremely critical. And I'll give you 2 examples. One is our prior BPO, business process outsourcing. Today, the reason it has 3,700 employees for the company that we sold initially is because it is doing healthcare and healthcare only. So once you choose a focus, like your own institute, there are so many MBAs around, but this institute focused only on operations management. And that too, they define certain eligibility criteria. They must be engineers. And because there is a laser focus, then that's why the average compensation package that your institute gets is so attractive, because it's a laser focus. Like in our case also, as a non-bank finance company, our RBI allowed us to give any lending, to give any loans. However, we remained focused only on education loans. And in the initial days of Credila, we focused only on Indian students going to the US. Within that, Indian students going to the US pursuing MS only. Whoever have done engineering and they want to do MS in the US, we gave loans to those only. Now, why does this laser focus help and how does it help? Because you develop your domain expertise into it, like operations management. You look at the courses, they are so niche and so relevant to the industry, and you can respond to the change faster because your faculty is teaching similar subjects and they get the depth of the understanding, the depth in knowledge, awareness, industry connects, industry network. Same thing happened with Credila. Because we were doing only education loan, that too for studies abroad, our expertise increased. And that's when we could scale up. So that's the second point in the equation. The third one, and this is extremely critical. Are you doing it as a solo player, as an individual, or with a strategic partner? Now, before I come to our 2 examples, see, if you look at the institute that you are a part of now, this institute, there is a strategic partner here, which is Symbiosis. That's a brand, because that means a lot. It has respect, it has industry recognition. And because of that, students, the best students come in. And because of that only, the recruiters perceive it as top quality, meaning as an entry point. Once they meet you, once they interact with you, once they see the coursework, the faculty, they realize that you are really good. But to get them into the door, the brand mattered. So what we had done, and that's, in my opinion, is a secret sauce of our ability to scale up disruptions, is because in our previous venture, the BPO that we had started, we had Des Moines, Iowa from the US. That entity owned 51% and my brother and I owned 49%. So we had a strategic partner. How does it help? And those of you who want to be entrepreneurs, I strongly recommend that you have a strategic partner. An investment, a financial partner is not a strategic partner. A strategic partner means somebody who can bring in more than the money. So if you, let's say, in our case, the BPO, that person not only gave us the capital, but also gave us domain expertise, how to do that work, how to do those jobs, how to get the network. In Credila, Merrill Lynch were our first investors. We were two individuals, Anil, who's also an engineer, and MS from the US, and me. We both had no business, the financial services background, in lending I mean. Despite that, Merrill Lynch came in as a strategic partners. They had $1.7 trillion under management at that time. Them coming in as 40% equity partner only happened because, in my opinion, we were laser focused. We were proposing one specific solution, one specific value proposition or a product to the unserved market, which was extremely untapped and untargeted in India. Second reason is, I think, as this slide says, with Merrill Lynch coming in, we got their know-how. They taught us how education loan is to be done, or how it was done in the US. And after they became Bank of America, you must have heard of 2008, that turbulence and when the Wall Street was going through a lot of headwinds. That's when we woke up one day and we realized that Bank of America is now our partner, because Merrill Lynch got acquired by Bank of America on that Friday. And that's when Bank of America became our 40% partner. And everything was happening from Nasik only. Even now, Credila's disbursements happen from Nasik. So that's when they decided to not be the principals in any lending organization globally. That's when HDFC came in, and HDFC acquired the stake of Merrill Lynch. That's when our strategic partner changed from Merrill Lynch to HDFC. Now, when I said that a strategic partner is way more than a financial partner, how it meant for HDFC to us is, as you know, HDFC Limited, they are the parent, and they parent of all HDFC group companies, HDFC Bank, HDFC Ergo, HDFC Life Insurance, or HDFC Mutual Fund. They all are the subsidiaries of HDFC Limited, even Credila was. So that HDFC brought in corporate governance standards. Now that means how to do the board composition, have the star-studded board of directors for us, the best practices in lending, figuring out how to build a quality book with low non-performing assets. So if you want to do any project, coming back to you, what can it mean to you in your jobs as a strategic partner is a mentor. Let's say you want to apply ChatGPT kind of tools in your organization, then get somebody who's an expert in ChatGPT to validate your ideas, your concepts, your disruptions, to be the sounding board, to make sure that you do not take the right turns or left turns. And that's very critical. Or within the organization also, you may find somebody who's a reservoir of knowledge. Like in this case, every person in HDFC brought in the domain expertise of the 35 years. Second thing, HDFC Limited did nothing else but home loans for 35 years and had 6 lakh crore of balance sheet. So they were our role models. We, Credila, just started out with a dream and a vision to be the private education loan lender. And we pioneered private education loan lender, because after Credila came in, 6-7 other non-bank finance companies are education loan focused. And after 13 years also, if we look at today, in the US it's $1.7 trillion. It has grown from $700 billion to $1.7 trillion. While as in India, it has grown only from $10 billion to $12 billion. It has not moved that much. So there is still so much of potential. Any one of you who want to be in that sector, education loan, I think many more entrepreneurs can emerge from this sector. So that's the power of having a strategic partner. Any entity which is a startup, you have seen a lot of mortality rate. Many startups come in and they disappear in a short span of time. Why? Because they take the ivory tower approach that this is a product and that's it. Or if you go as a practitioner or as a professional of operations management, you would be questioned also that unless you figure out the way to co-create it with your customers, meaning your stakeholders, if you are designing a solution or you are reinventing something or you are reorienting some process or improving productivity, you have to have a continuous loop feedback. Take the feedback, do the course correction, change the action. Like in this case, in Credila, we always went to our stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? The students, the intermediaries, the student advisors, or the universities abroad. And they kept on telling various things. There could be 1,000 nano innovations that we need to do. It is very important. It's not like one magic wand you just throw and it will work. It has to be 1,000 nano tweaks and innovations that one has to do to really bring in excellence in what we do. And that's what we try to do. So, for example, at Credila, simple thing like being able to institutionalize knowledge. Now, as the lender, education loan business means you give a loan to somebody and that person has to pay you back. Now, how do you assess the ability to pay back and the willingness to pay back? That's where we innovated a lot. Credila created a repository where our analytics showed us that from the given country, of the given university, of the given college, let's say if it's USA, within that New York University, engineering, doing aeronautics engineering. So specifically to that level of precision, we could project what could be the starting salary of a graduating student in the given year. Now that gave the confidence to Credila to give out loans without any security or without any collateral. That has never happened and that's a disruption. Now how could we do that? Because we co-created it based on the customer. Students said that we do not have collateral. We knew it because we had gone through that exercise. That student who is sincere, who does the homework on time, who can get such a threshold level of scores in GRE or GMAT or certain academic credentials and has performed well. Person who is sincere in one aspect of life typically is sincere in other aspects of life as well. And we were betting on it. And it came out true because today Credila has disbursed 25,000 crores with the revenue of 9 months of only 2,000 crores. And in terms of profitability, despite these risks or perceived risks, the profitability of Credila is about 24% of the revenue. Profit before tax is about 24%. And these are numbers in the public domain as on December 31st. So the concept which started from Nasik today in 13 years, they have disbursed, the balance sheet is about 25,000 crores. That's the power of focus, and this formula, the points I'm just sharing with you are the outcome of these exercises or these experiences. The next point on the formula, the success strategy that we are creating. There are two ways of doing things, that you become extravagant. Let's say you go into a department as a operations management professional and let's say a budget of 50 lakhs is allocated to you. That you, let's say, do your work and then deliver. Now one way is that squander the money, just pay as much as you can or spend it on whatever tools you need. Other way is optimum resource utilization. Now it looks very simple, but it's extremely profound than it sounds. Because you would run out of cash no matter what happens. Unforeseen incidences would happen over and over again. Your resources will be drained no matter how frugal you are. So therefore the strategy, that's what Credila did, that to be able to disburse 10,000 crores until I was there as the MD and CEO, we had only 250 employees. Why? Because once we keep the cost low, our lending rates can remain low, our cost can remain low, and we can still be profitable to be able to deliver return on equity. Because as a non-bank finance company, your shareholders have to continue to infuse money, and you have to borrow money from the market as non-convertible debentures or commercial papers or perpetual debt. That can only happen if you deliver financial metric, and that's what we did because we were really focused on optimizing our resources. So that's the next element on the success formula. See, one could be just finding a systemic solution, like a balloon model. You keep rising or you keep growing. Balloon keeps growing, right? Once you inflate it, it keeps growing. The other way could be deep-rooted model. The difference between the two is one focuses only on growth. And there are many organizations who just keep growing. But that, in my opinion, is a recipe for a disaster. The reason being, unless you have your roots all the way spread out, and unless, like, what do we mean by that? To give you one example, at Credila, we created the ecosystem around us. So Credila sourcing engines, where the loans were coming in from, where the leads were coming in from. We signed up with banks. Banks started sourcing for Credila. When they were actually, their sizes were way higher or bigger than what Credila's balance sheet was, but they started sourcing for Credila for a fee. Second, our ecosystem of partners. Credila partnered with about 1,000 entities or intermediaries who advise students for their studies abroad. Also, the experts from the universities abroad, they came in and they interacted with Credila. Even visa officers, the US consulate in Hyderabad, they came in and understood how Credila approves the loans to make sure that the risk mitigants are in place or not. So once you go deeper, and what does it mean to you? So while you are here, are you developing your professional and personal network? Are you developing your ecosystem to be the students for life? Are you developing your network to unlearn and relearn? Are you constantly in a mode where you engage with the industry experts and understand what are they looking for? So those points are very critical. Now in that, I think there is one video I want to share before I conclude, and there are 2-3 other slides after that, and then we'll conclude. This video is the power of perseverance, grit, and also an important lesson on the lines of what we have seen. It's a 2-3 minutes video. Let's see if we can play it. Formula that we have seen. So rules of the success are getting rewritten. So either in the respective organizations that you join, either you become the disruptor or get disrupted because somebody else, either the technology or some other tools would come in or the robots may come in and outsmart you. And so the next frontier of growth will come in based on how quickly we can unlearn and see things differently. That people would be there, but can you see things differently so that you could be the disruptor and therefore emerge as the leader? Life, in my opinion, is a story. Let yours be the bestseller. Go take on the world. Wish you all the best. Thank you. Thank you. Are we taking the questions?
Yeah. So now the floor is open for questions if anyone wants to ask.
So when we have a big business behind us, so and when we are not aligning expansion strategy or some goals, so how do we go forward from there?
Meaning as an organization or as an entrepreneur you are saying? So you have meaning somebody has the family business going on and then you want to disrupt.
No, when we combine our company with some of the strategic partnership as you mentioned, so long-term goal, it might be that their long-term goal might not be aligned with the organization as a strategic partner. So how do we go forward from that?
So that's a good point. See, please have a seat. If there is a traditional business going on, let's say in the family or in the environment, the best way to start out small, but not of the entire organization, but a subset. Let's take a subset of that. Let's say the organization is into manufacturing. Then can a small string be taken out of that and take the strategic partner only for that? For multiple reasons. A, that nothing succeeds like success. So if anybody is able to demonstrate quick hits or successes in a shorter span of time, then the conviction of the others to give you more resources also increases. Second thing, your confidence would build. And third most important thing is the strategic partner that come in, or let's say if the business is manufacturing 10 things, you pick up let's say one small point and get a strategic partner only for that. Then what could be the strategic objective of of that partner? In this case, either acquire you. Even then, that's a good idea. So I know of one startup in Jaipur. They are related. They have some technology solution for tires, and Bridgestone has become their strategic partner. Now Bridgestone is a mega player in tire industry, but because of their pedigree and because of their credentials of Bridgestone, the company valuation has gone up. Now the goals of Bridgestone is to acquire them. Correct? That's what you are saying. So this example matches with that. While as this entrepreneur wants to grow. So what they have done is, he says that if I sell it to you, I'll do this business or somebody else will do that anyways. So instead, you make it a win-win. So what he has done is, he went back to the Bridgestone company and said that your objective is to sell more tires and make sure that I become the captive to capture wear and tear data for you and various other tools for analytics. That I'll do exclusively for you, but I'll generate more revenues for you by tying up with many others. If you are Bridgestone, you may not get data of other players. So you figure out a value proposition where the strategic partner also finds the value in that, because then they would be able to calibrate their data, how their tires perform vis-a-vis other tire manufacturers. That is a unique piece that he is bringing to the table, and therefore their goals can be aligned that they would want him to succeed, because the more he succeeds, more data he can get, better analytics Bridgestone can get out of that investment that they have done. But it will depend on a specific example, and that's where I think you are disruptive, meaning I say it in a positive way. a disruptive solution can emerge from that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
The risk part, when Credila decided that it will target the student loans when it was conceived. So, sir, how did you plan on managing the risks? Because lending is a very risky business. So, like how the risks were assessed and what were the risk mitigation plans?
I think that's the real crux of why Credila became what Credila it is now. That's a very good question. So lending is nothing else but risk, because you are giving the money to somebody, an unknown person, and that person has to pay you back. So until the last rupee comes in, it's a risk and would continue to be the risk. So the way we assessed is we figured out that I'll give you the granular details of it because it relates to operations management. The technical part of it is Credila created a risk register. You believe it or not, but it's true. And that's the best practice of HDFC Limited, our parent. What does it mean? A risk register means all risks were noted down formally in a risk register. For example, environmental risks, economic risk. Let's say, what could be the economic risk? Just to give you an example, that the interest rates may go up, or the borrowing cost would go up. As an NBFC, you have to borrow from somewhere and lend to somebody, right? So, interest rate risk. Third, financial risk. The defaults might increase. Against each risk, we wrote down the potential and actual mitigant. That these are the risk mitigants. Third, despite the risk mitigant, what is the residual risk? Residual risk. And it was a numerical number. It was a number. Let's say the risk of interest rate change is high, means 5, the score of 5. And you could only mitigate 3, that means 2 remain. But it's a high impact risk on the profitability and on the P&L and the income statement of the company. So the residual risk still remains. The focus of entire company and the management was how to minimize the total score, which is a cumulative of the weighted average of all risks put together. This is a process. This is the operational part of it, which I am sharing. At a macro level, what we did was we figured out the critical risk is student not paying back, or us, Credila, not being able to track the student and the whereabouts of the students. And that's where our domain expertise came in. And that's where personally I was involved. So we realized that students default for 2 reasons. One is the ability to repay. That means they do not have the jobs or their family does not have the money to pay, which is easy to solve because you have to wait and then you will get the money back and then you figure out a mechanism around it within the framework of Reserve Bank of India guidelines. Second is willingness. There is no remedy to that. If somebody feels that I don't want to pay, then in that case we created deterrents for default. And what were those deterrents for default? Is if they default, then there would be consequences. For example, Credila used to take, or even now, I'm not sure, post-dated checks. So as per the Negotiable Instruments Acts of India, under section 138, there is a 6-month jail term if the check bounces. Now if the student has given that check and if that student has no intention to repay, the check can be deposited and the student can go behind bars. Has it happened? Yes. Does it happen often? Absolutely not. People do not have the intent. But were the cases filed on under 138? Yes. Second deterrent to default is awareness. Telling the students that if you create the history of repayment, your CIBIL scores would go up. CIBIL means it's a credit score. Then you can get the additional or other loans at a lower cost. Correct? And if you default on these education loans now, your CIBIL score would go down and consequently your ability to take home loans, auto loans or any other loans would go down. So creating awareness. And there were many other tools that we developed on one risk. And there were many other risks like document forging or fraudulent documents. So we created certain tools to monitor that. Another thing is, which is at the management level, it is the, whenever fraud happens or whenever risk get taken, they do not happen afterwards. The risks are at the outset only. The way you formulate your incentive schemes, in my opinion, or the KRAs. So what we had done was, our key responsibility areas, KRAs, or the deliverables of the management were properly defined. We had a Chinese wall between a credit person, meaning the person or the team which were responsible to approve or decline a loan. They had no numbers target. Their incentives were based on how many students defaulted. So if there are more number of students defaulting, then their bonus would get affected. So they would have every interest to make sure they do proper checks, correct? And the business development, their goals were to get in maximum files. So when we do the system architecture or when we design the processes and the incentive systems, they have to be aligned to what you want to achieve, keeping risk in mind. And because of that only, if you see the book that Credila has built, despite a substantial portion of that remaining unsecured, the non-performing assets of Credila remain less than 1%, even now at 25,000 crore of book, while as globally, not just in India, it is anywhere between 5 to 8%. That happened because risk was mitigated as a systemic approach and holistically it was done. And because of that, when you might have read in the newspapers or on the TV also, Credila, we exited in 2019. Now SDFC exited just 6 months ago. The deal is yet to finalize, meaning yet to materialize because it's awaiting RBI approval. But the transaction has been finalized and SDFC sold Credila for 10,350 crores. Just think of the value creation. The concept which started from Nasik 13 years ago, the valuation is 10,350 crores. It happened because the risk got mitigated on one hand. On the other hand, it created a platform where disbursements are happening. This year it would be about 7 to 8,000 crores per year, disbursements. And the profitability metric also is getting delivered. So it's a combination of all of that, and the one word to do that is your domain expertise. Are you able to institutionalize knowledge? And are you able to make sure that whatever the ecosystem and the stakeholders are saying, are you absorbing that and inculcating it into your systems and processes? And this can be extrapolated to even manufacturing environment, e-commerce, or no matter what projects you do. Your domain expertise. Wish you all the very best. Thank you.
On behalf of CIOM Nashik, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for gracing us with your presence and participation in today's enlightening session. It is needed an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to host Mr. Ajay Vora, whose insights have undoubtedly left an indelible mark on our minds. Now, without a further delay, I would request our own Deputy Director, Ma'am, Dr. Ratna Paluri, to felicitate our guest.